It can be somewhat daunting to implement user authentication and authorization from scratch in your application. With Identity and Access Management, or IAM for short, and Firebase authentication, you are now free from the burden of building such a system. In the module Handling Authentication and Authorization, you'll learn how to create IAM members, specify what resources they have access to, and what operations they can perform on these resources. You'll learn how to use service accounts to allow your application to authenticate and authorize itself to invoke Google Cloud Platform APIs. We'll discuss how you can use Cloud Identity Aware Proxy to control access to your application. The Firebase SDK makes it really easy to implement federated identity management. You'll learn how to use the Firebase SDK for user authentication.
Hi, I'm Elaine Biddle, and this is Handling Authentication and Authorization. Cloud Identity and Access Management, or IAM, lets you manage access control by defining who, the members, has access, roles, for which resource. You can grant more granular access to GCP resources using the security principle of least privilege. Only grant necessary access to resources. You can specify who has access to your resources with IAM members. Members can be of the following types: Google account, service account, Google group, G Suite domain, or cloud identity domain. A Google Cloud account represents a developer, administrator, or person who interacts with Google Cloud Platform. An email address that is associated with a Google account, such as a gmail.com address, can be an identity. A service account belongs to an application as opposed to an individual end user. A Google group is a named collection of Google accounts and service accounts. Every group has a unique email address that is associated with the group. Google Groups are a convenient way to apply an access policy to a collection of users. Google Groups don't have login credentials, so you cannot use them to establish identity to make a request to access a resource. A G Suite domain represents a virtual group of all the members in an organization. Suite customers can associate their email accounts with an internet domain name. When you do this, each email account takes the form username@yourdomain.com. You can specify an identity by using any internet domain name that is associated with a G Suite account. Like groups, domains cannot be used to establish identity, but they enable convenient permission management. A cloud identity domain represents a virtual group of all members in an organization, but doesn't provide access to G Suite applications and features. You can grant access to users for a cloud platform resource. Some examples of resources are projects, compute engine instances, cloud storage buckets, pub subtopics, etc. Permissions determine what operations are allowed on a resource. In the Cloud IAM world, permissions are represented in the form of service.resource.verb. For example, pubsub.subscriptions.consume. Permissions usually, but not always, correspond one-to-one with REST methods. That is, each cloud platform service has an associated set of permissions for each REST method that it exposes. The caller of that method needs those permissions to call that method. For example, the caller of publisher.publish needs the pubsub.topics.publish permission. A role is a collection of permissions. You cannot assign a permission to the user directly. Instead, you grant them a role. When you grant a role to a user, grant them all the permissions that the role contains. With Cloud IAM, a Cloud API method requires the identity making the API request to have the appropriate permissions to use the resource. You can grant permissions by granting roles to a user, a group, or a service account. There are two kinds of roles: primitive and predefined. The primitive roles can be applied at the project level using Cloud Platform Console, the API, and the G-Cloud command line tool. It should be noted that granting the owner role at a resource level, such as a pub subtopic, does not grant the owner role on the parent project. The owner role does not contain any permission for the organization resource. Granting the owner role at the organization level does not allow you to update the organization's metadata, but it allows you to modify projects under that organization. Cloud IAM provides predefined roles that give granular access to specific Google Cloud Platform resources and prevent unwanted access to other resources. You can grant multiple roles to the same user. For example, the same user can have network admin and log viewer roles on a project and also have a publisher role for a pub/sub topic within that project. As an example, roles for Cloud Bigtable are provided. For more information on predefined roles, please see the resource link available in the download section below. A policy is attached to a resource and is used to enforce access control whenever that resource is accessed. A Cloud IAM policy is represented by the policy object. A policy consists of a list of bindings. A binding binds a list of members to a role. The Cloud IAM API methods available are set IAM policy, which allows you to set policies on your resources, get IAM policy, which allows you to get a policy that was previously set, and test IAM permissions, which allows you to test whether the caller has the specified permissions for a resource. Cloud Platform resources are organized hierarchically, where the organization node is the root node in the hierarchy, the projects are the children of the organization, and the other resources are the children of projects. Each resource has exactly one parent.